tennis throughout the 1990s belonged to one man. Pete Sampras took hold of the record books and tore them to shreds, winning more matches and titles than anyone had ever dreamed of. Monica Seles won her first Grand Slam title at the age of 16. By the time she was 19, she had 7 more. Björn Borg was in the game for less than a decade, yet left it as one of the greatest players in history. This is the Immortals. Pete Sampras never craved the spotlight or the razzmatazz which came with being the best tennis player on the planet. He simply wanted to win. It was the tournament he owned. Pete Sampras had won Wimbledon an incredible 7 times. No one could get close to the American on the grass at the All England Club. Between 1993 and 2001, he'd put together an extraordinary 56-1 record. In 2002, Sampras lost in the second round to George Bastel of Switzerland. It was a result which shocked the tennis world and rocked the game's greatest player. The lowest point of my career. Sampras sent an SOS to his former coach, Paul Annacone. He didn't want his career to fizzle out. He knew he had another Grand Slam victory in him. Even though most people thought at 31, his best days were well and truly behind him. The signs weren't too encouraging, leading into the US Open with a second-round loss in Cincinnati and first-round exit at Long Island. Yet Sampras cruised through the opening 2 rounds at Flushing Meadow before requiring 5 sets to get over Britain's big serving left-hander, Greg Rosetsky. Tommy Haas and Andy Roddick were next, as the old Pistol Pete started to find his groove with surprise semi-finalist Sheng Shalkin, then easily dispatched. That set up a dream final against his arch-rival Andre Agassi. This would be their 34th matchup, and the pair had gone full circle, with Sampras's first Grand Slam victory coming against his fellow American 12 years earlier on this very court. We seemed to bring out the best in each other's game. Since then, Agassi had won 7 Grand Slam titles to Sampras's 13. The opening 2 sets of the final was a Sampras masterclass, with his serve humming, before Agassi found a way to claw back in the 3rd set. After some anxious moments early in the 4th, Sampras got on a wave of emotion and rode it all the way to his 5th US Open title. He was emotionally and physically spent after the match, one which he would later describe as the best victory of his career. Sampras never played again. He didn't officially announce his retirement until the eve of the 2003 US Open, where a special ceremony in his honor was held.
I'm not retiring because I'm married or I have a son. I'm retiring because I have nothing to prove to myself.
Sampras won at least 1 major title for 8 straight years through the middle of his career. He appeared in at least 1 Wimbledon or US Open final for 12 of the last 13 years of his career, and was victorious in 14 of 18 Grand Slam finals he appeared in. That's why he was universally regarded as the greatest, a tennis immortal. Still to come on the Immortals, how a coaching masterstroke created the most dominant force in men's tennis. Completing the career Grand Slam is one of the most difficult feats in all of sports. Despite Pete Sampras's dominance, he was never able to taste victory at all 4 majors, with the French Open crown eluding him. Only 8 men in the history of the game have managed to collect a perfect set of trophies over their careers. Roland Garros has been the most difficult jewel of the bunch to collect, with 5 of the legends sealing the deal there. Don Budge, Fred Perry, Andre Agassi, Roger Federer, and Novak Djokovic. Roy Emerson took his place in the select group by winning Wimbledon in 1964, while US Open victories to Rod Laver and Rafael Nadal got them membership. Pete Sampras was introduced to tennis after he found an old wooden racket in the basement of his family's home. The son of an aerospace engineer and a former beauty parlor employee, he quickly showed talent for the game after the family moved to California. His first coach, Peter Fisher, made a crucial decision early into his development, which effectively changed the course of his career. The double-handed backhand had to go, replaced by a one-handed stroke with the idea to make volleying easier. Everyone thought he was nuts to suggest it. Without that one-hand backhand, I don't win all those Wimbledons. Sampras turned pro at 16 and won his first Grand Slam match, ironically, on his least favored surface, the clay of Roland Garros. At the 1989 US Open, he defeated defending champion Mats Wilander in the second round. His first professional title came in February 1990, the Ebel US Pro Indoor in Philadelphia. 6 months later, he was a Grand Slam champion. Sampras defeated Ivan Lendl and John McEnroe en route to the US Open final, where he defeated Agassi in straight sets to become the youngest ever champion at 19 years and 28 days. He'd gone from anonymity to superstardom in the space of 2 weeks. Sampras struggled having a bullseye on his chest and didn't find his way back to the final Sunday in a slam again until 2 years later at the US Open. He lost that to Swede Stefan Edberg and described the match as the wake-up call he needed to figure out how to get to number 1. On April 12, 1993, he officially became the best player in the world, triggering a record sequence. For the next 6 years, Sampras set an ATP record by finishing with the year-ending ranking of number 1. He celebrated his new status by taking down his former training partner Jim Courier at Wimbledon, the tournament for which his whole game had been built around.
I feel prepared. Each year I've played here, I've played at the tournament at the Queen's Club. Unfortunately, I pulled out because of the French Open. I was very tired. I went home. So I got here about a week ago, and I've been practicing a couple hours a day, trying to get ready, and now I'm ready to play. It's a couple days away, so I feel like I'm kind of chomping at the bit, so to speak, and ready to go. And hopefully I can play like I did the last 3 years, and hopefully do it 4 times in a row.
Sampras's serve and volley game on the grass was quite simply a thing of beauty, as he won 6 out of 7 Wimbledon titles from 1993 to 2000, with his only miss coming in 1996, when he lost in the quarterfinals to eventual winner Richard Krajicek. The toughest moment of his career came during an emotional quarterfinal match at the Australian Open against Courier. Sampras's coach, Tim Gullickson, had collapsed before the tournament and had subsequently been diagnosed with brain cancer. During the match, Sampras was in tears after a spectator in the crowd urged him to do it for his coach. From the other side of the net, Courier voiced his concern, even offering to come back the following day to finish the match. Sampras continued on, eventually winning the match, although he lost the final to Agassi.
I had a lot of questions. I was looking for the answers after he passed away, and the first one was why. I mean, why is someone who was a great guy, didn't have a bad bone in his body, 44 years old. He was taken from us, and it was the finality of everything, the finality of not being able to talk to him or see him again. That I had a hard time with that, and I've never experienced death before, and it just opened my eyes, and it really just sobered me up to my life and to tennis and whatever, and how after he passed away, tennis wasn't important to me.
His rivalry with Agassi captivated the tennis world because they were completely different characters on and off the court. Agassi was the Las Vegas showman with the fancy clothes and lifestyle, whereas Sampras was labeled boring and mechanical like a robot, thanks to his expressionless demeanor as he slayed opponents. I never wanted to be the great guy or the colorful guy or the interesting guy. I wanted to be the guy who won titles.
I expect myself to win, and what the press says, positive or negative, really doesn't affect me. I mean, honestly, I really, whatever they write, they write. I did it at first a little bit a couple years ago, and they kind of put the boring label on me. But no, I don't feel any extra pressure. I mean, I'm one of the favorites, but it's not like it's the end of the world if it doesn't happen. If it happens, great. If not, then there's always next year. But I'm here to win, so I'm gonna give it my best shot.
His best shots kept coming. In 1999, he equaled Roy Emerson's record 12 Grand Slam victories by again beating Agassi at Wimbledon in what was regarded as one of the best wins of his career. He owned the record outright the following year by defeating Australia's Pat Rafter at Wimbledon. The only thing that had eluded Sampras was the French Open, the final piece in the career Grand Slam. His closest effort came in 1996, when he lost in the semi-finals to eventual winner Yevgeny Kafelnikov. In 2001, he failed to win a Grand Slam for the first time since 1992, with critics and opponents suggesting Pistol Pete had lost a step. He knew he had one last dance in him, and despite being seeded number 17 coming into the 2002 US Open, Sampras was on one last mission. Victory in the final against Agassi saw him join Jimmy Connors on 5 US Open titles. As he walked from Arthur Ashe Stadium that night, Sampras knew it was for the last time.
My last couple years on the tour, I felt like a little bit tired. When I hit 30, I just felt just being out there on the road and having to play, I just felt like it was time for me to move on.
While he may have been gone, he certainly wasn't forgotten, with the low-key American the inspiration for the next generation of superstars.
Everything changed for me when I saw Pete Sampras triumph at Wimbledon. He became my idol. I dreamt of being just like him, the #1 tennis player in the world. It took me 13 years to achieve my goal.
I think me watching my idol do so well there, it brings back great memories, and it wants me a big part of me to do really well at Wimbledon, and I believe I can.
In many ways, it was unfortunate that the careers of Sampras and Federer didn't cross over, with only one meeting of the superstars. A 5-set victory to the Swiss genius in the 4th round at Wimbledon in 2001. The debate about who is the best grass court player in history is a fascinating one.
That'd be very difficult. You'd have to put Federer right up there, Sampras up there, Laver up there. That's a tough question, who's the best grass court player is.
Sampras bid farewell with more Grand Slam titles than anyone in history. His legend was set, his legacy of greatness acknowledged, his status clear. He was an immortal. Up next on the Immortals, how a teenager changed women's tennis forever. Monica Seles was on track to being the greatest player in history before a madman cruelly denied her the opportunity to fulfill her destiny. Monica Seles won 8 Grand Slam titles before her 20th birthday. Tennis had never seen anything like it before and would never again. During a 2-year stretch between 1991 and 1993, Seles produced a period of domination that was unheralded in any sport. After winning her first Australian Open, she made 33 finals out of 34 tournaments and won 6 Grand Slams from the 7 she contested. Her first Grand Slam title had come at the 1990 French Open, where she'd become the youngest champion at 16 after defeating world number 1 Steffi Graf. Seles wasn't forecasting world domination after Grand Slam number 2 in Australia. I'm glad I won't be labeled a 1 Grand Slam person and just a clay court person. By March 1991, she had replaced Graf as world number 1 and was denied the calendar Grand Slam of winning all 4 majors in the 1 year because of shin splints, which kept her out of Wimbledon. In the US Open final, she took down all-time great Martina Navratilova. She'd actually beaten another, Chris Evert, to win her first professional tournament in Houston in 1989. Just 3 months after she turned professional at the age of 15. Seles grew up in Yugoslavia and had been coached by her father Karol, who worked as a newspaper cartoonist. He was responsible for developing her two-handed backhand and forehand, which became her trademark. The family moved to the US in 1986, where she attended the famous Nick Bollettieri Tennis Academy. While most teenagers her age were just starting high school, Seles was focused on one thing. Tennis has to become everything to you if you're going to make it to the top. You have to live it. After her breakthrough year of 1991, Seles backed it up again by winning 3 of the 4 majors in 1992, with Wimbledon again slipping through her grasp. And once again, it was Graf who denied her. But the main talking point to come out of the tournament was Seles's grunting, which punctuated her matches. Seles said she didn't realize she was doing it, but even years later, other greats like Serena Williams were crediting her with bringing it to their game.
I looked up to, of course, Monica Seles. I know you feel like everyone looked up to you, but you were like, I started grunting because of you. That's the reason, so in case anyone wants to complain about the grunts, there's Monica.
When Seles won the 1993 Australian Open against Graf again, it meant her Grand Slam record in the previous 2 years stood at 55 wins and just 1 loss. And she'd only just turned 19. April 30, 1993, and Monica Seles's life changed forever, and tennis was never the same. During a quarter-final match in Hamburg, Germany, a crazed, obsessed fan of Steffi Graf attacked Seles as she sat in her chair for a change of ends. Gunter Parch stabbed Seles in the back with a boning knife. Physically, Seles was incredibly lucky, as the knife barely missed her lungs, spinal cord, and other major organs. Miraculously, she needed only a few stitches to close the wound and a short hospital stay. But the world's best player was never the same again. She didn't play for 2 years as she battled depression, which turned into an eating disorder. She was robbed. It was one of the most tragic things to happen in all of sports. Seles was reinstated as joint number 1 with Graf when she returned in 1995 and won her comeback tournament, the Canadian Open. She reached the final of the US Open, losing to Graf, before winning her 4th Australian Open crown in January 1996. It was to be her final Grand Slam victory. Seles was never the same player or person after the attack, and played her final match at the 2003 French Open, where she lost in the first round. While she finished with 53 career titles and 9 Grand Slams, it was universally agreed that was only a snapshot of what she could have achieved. She would have been the greatest. While the hurt never goes away, Seles stayed in touch with the sport she once dominated and has enjoyed watching another child prodigy go on to great success.
I played Serena when she was 16, I think was #1 at the stage, and I remember calling my agent that night. I said, boy, my days are numbered. You know, as an other player, you kind of feel it when somebody comes on the scene, it's going to take the game to another level. And it's, you know, just really great to see that she's playing some great tennis again and where it's going. But for me, I'd have to say it was Serena.
That's gorgeous.
The pair share more than just an early start to their careers. They're both immortals of the game. When we return, the suave Swede who walked away at the peak of his powers. He had a career others could only dream about, yet it wasn't enough for Björn Borg, the 11-time Grand Slam champion who fell out of love with the game. It's generally accepted that an elite sportsman comes into their prime by their mid-20s. By that time, Björn Borg had been and gone. In the space of 9 years, the Swedish star had become the greatest player in the game, winning 11 Grand Slams before walking away at the age of 26. Borg was the pin-up boy of tennis throughout the 1970s, his stardom helping to drive the popularity of the sport. He had a distinctive style. He walked bow-legged but was quick, with incredibly powerful ground strokes. Borg's physical conditioning was unrivaled, and his calmness under pressure earned him the nickname the Ice Borg. From 1974 to 1981, he won 6 French Open titles and 5 consecutive Wimbledon trophies. We're playing tennis, he's playing something else. At the age of 15, Borg had won his first Davis Cup singles match against New Zealand. It was a format where he would put together an incredible record. He never lost a Davis Cup singles rubber, finishing his career with a 33-0 record. His Wimbledon winning streak came to an end at 41 matches in the 1981 final at the hands of his great rival, American John McEnroe. It was McEnroe who also defeated Borg in his last Grand Slam final appearance at the US Open later that year. After the match, the Swede walked straight off the court and was out of the stadium before the ceremonies, on his way to the airport. Borg was suffering from burnout, and 18 months later, he walked away from the sport. The US Open title eluded him despite 4 finals appearances. While he had little interest in the 4th Grand Slam, the Australian Open, only making 1 appearance throughout his successful career. He could have won the Grand Slam, but the historical challenge didn't mean anything. He was bigger than the game. He was like Elvis or Liz Taylor. He attempted a comeback in 1991, but failed to win a match. The emergence of Roger Federer and Rafael Nadal in recent times brought Borg's extraordinary career back into the spotlight. In 2017, the trio came together for a new teams event called the Laver Cup, with Borg named Europe's captain.
It's a kind of a dream came true. I think we all, or I believe we all, look forward to this event. I think it's going to be a huge thing for tennis. being a captain of the European team, we have so many great players in Europe. And I think this is the first time that everybody can get together on the European team, and all the players playing single, doubles, and support each other. And I think that's a huge thing. And then you have Rafa and you have Roger. Who doesn't want to be a captain of these two great champions?
While 40 years may have passed since Björn Borg was world #1, he sits comfortably in the presence of Federer and Nadal. All champions, all immortals.